deal?
Well, it depends what deal we're talking about. But if it's a deal I heard about, that's certainly, they want to change the deal a little bit. But I would say so. I think based on everything I'm hearing, they haven't changed anything. And we have support from enough Democrats. And we're going to be opening up our country. It's too bad it was closed, but we'll be opening up our country very quickly.
Mr. President, that deal does reverse the mass firings your administration put through during the shutdown. Did you sign off on that, and will you abide by that if this passes?
Well, I will be. I'll abide by the deal. The deal is very good. We're not going to be giving $1.5 trillion to people that came in from jails and from, the gangs and drug dealers and all of these others that they wanted to be given health care, which would have hurt our health care system. I hope that we're going to be able to have a health care where Lindsay and I were discussing it, Jim and I were discussing it, and Katie, we discussed it. We want a health care system where we pay the money to the people instead of the insurance companies. And I tell you, we're going to be working on that very hard over the next short period of time, where the people get the money. We're talking about trillions and trillions of dollars where the people get the money.
You are not going to believe what just happened in Washington. On March 9, 2026, a bipartisan group of House lawmakers delivered a direct ultimatum to President Donald Trump that could put his presidency in danger within days. They gave him 72 hours to make a choice: resign voluntarily or face fast-tracked impeachment proceedings designed to remove him from office. This is not the usual partisan noise. This is not only Democrats calling for impeachment from the sidelines. This is a bipartisan coalition, and it reportedly includes 8 Republican members of Congress. 8 members of Trump's own party have signed onto a resolution demanding that he step down or be forced out. That is the kind of moment that tells you a presidency is reaching its breaking point. That is what it looks like when political support begins to collapse from the inside. Now let's look at the resolution that turned this into a formal impeachment threat.
Speaker there saying that the second article, obstruction of Congress, there were 229 yeas, 198 nays, with one member voting present. As expected, those 3 Democrats, Representatives Jeff Van Drew, Colin Peterson, and Jared Golden, were those 3 no votes. Adjourned, we are told, until 9 a.m. tomorrow. Yep. So, Molly, tell us about, now you mentioned impeachment managers, right? Yep. Let's talk a little bit about the specifics here. What are the kind of qualities that the Democrats are going to want in an impeachment manager as this moves on to the Senate for a trial?
Well, first of all, I just want to point to one thing. If after these big votes, the House, whichever side prevails, tends to cheer and applaud. One thing you've noticed, Nancy Pelosi giving her members that stern look. Yeah. And you don't want to mess with Nancy Pelosi because this is not a time to be celebrating. This is not a gleeful time. This is somber and solemn. Mm-hmm.
The resolution is formally listed as H-Res 247, and it cites abuse of power and obstruction of justice as the basis for impeachment. It argues that Trump's conduct is endangering national security, that he has repeatedly abused the powers of the presidency, and that he has obstructed justice in multiple ongoing investigations. The resolution gives Trump 72 hours to resign on his own. If he refuses, the House is prepared to immediately begin impeachment proceedings, with a vote potentially scheduled as early as March 12th. According to the current count described in the script, lawmakers believe they may already have the 218 votes needed. All 195 Democrats are reportedly lined up, and at least 8 Republicans have broken ranks to join them. That is the math. That is the pressure. That is the political endgame now forming around Trump. This next part explains why lawmakers say this ultimatum did not come out of nowhere.
The House Committee on the Judiciary is introducing 2 articles of impeachment charging the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, with committing high crimes and misdemeanors.
The 2 articles, those are the charges against the president: abuse of power in his dealings with Ukraine and obstruction of Congress. On abuse of power, the charge that Donald Trump ignored and injured the interests of the nation and betrayed the nation by abusing his high office to enlist a foreign power in corrupting democratic elections. On obstruction of Congress, the charge that Trump, without lawful cause or excuse, rejected every subpoena or request for evidence, the article declaring, "In the history of the Republic, no president has ever ordered the complete defiance of an impeachment inquiry."
No one, not even the president, is above the law.
To understand why this is happening now, you have to look at the wave of scandals crashing into the Trump presidency all at once. This ultimatum did not appear out of nowhere. It came after a series of explosive developments that hit almost simultaneously. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office filed an impeachment referral accusing Trump of perjury in the fraud case. Marjorie Taylor Greene broke away from Trump and exposed alleged third-term plans and admissions tied to tariffs. Kristi Noem was fired and then leaked details about a $220 million advertising campaign. FBI memos surfaced showing Kash Patel approving the illegal firing of agents who had investigated Trump. A federal judge called Trump a liar about his asset valuations. All of these stories are happening at the same time, and Congress appears to be saying that the system can no longer function under this level of scandal and corruption. Either Trump resigns or Congress moves to force him out. Now watch how Trump responded when the pressure started closing in.
I want to remind everyone here in our nation's capital, especially in Congress, that this is not the time for politics, endless partisan investigations. Here we go again. Have already done extraordinary damage to our country in recent years. You see what happens. It's witch hunt after witch hunt after witch hunt. And in the end, the people doing the witch hunt have been losing, and they've been losing by a lot. And it's not any time for witch hunts. It's time to get this enemy defeated.
Trump's response was exactly what everyone expected. He called the resolution a loser witch hunt. He claimed Democrats were only coming after him because they lost the election. He said impeachment failed twice before and would fail again. He attacked the Republicans who signed onto the resolution, calling them rhinos and warning that they would regret it. But what matters most is what Trump did not do. He did not answer the substance of the allegations. He did not explain the $220 million ad campaign. He did not defend the alleged illegal FBI firings. He did not respond seriously to the perjury accusations. He did not explain the third-term planning allegations. He simply attacked the people demanding his resignation. That is what Trump does when he cannot defend the conduct itself. He shifts the focus away from the evidence and toward his enemies. Here is the part that makes this moment dangerous for Trump inside his own party.
The Republican Party is at a crossroads after Saturday's vote to acquit former President Trump of inciting an insurrection. The final vote was 57-43, including, this is key, 7 Republican senators. Now, that was 10 votes short of the 67 needed for a conviction. In his response, the former president seemed to take his acquittal as an endorsement. But as Ed O'Keefe reports from the White House, not all Republicans are on his side.
Top Republicans can't agree on what's next for the GOP.
We need to unite the party. Trump plus is the way back in 2022.
We've got to move on from the cult of Donald Trump and return to the basic principles that the party's always stood for.
What makes this moment so important is that 8 Republican House members are willing to publicly break with him and demand that he resign. These are not just random people with no connection to the party. These are Republicans who have been part of the same coalition that defended Trump through years of scandals, controversies, and impeachment fights. Some of them were elected with Trump's support. Some defended him through his first 2 impeachments, and now they are saying that this has gone too far. They are saying they can no longer protect him. That is what happens near the end of a presidency. The danger does not only come from the opposition party, it comes when members of the president's own side start walking away. Now let's see why the Senate math is suddenly becoming the biggest question.
The Senate will conduct a trial of the former president, and senators will render judgment on his conduct. Therefore, the point of order is ill-founded and, in any case, premature. If senators want this issue debated, it can and will be argued during the trial. Therefore, I move to table the point of order, and I ask for the yeas and nays.
Is there a sufficient second? There is a sufficient second. The clerk will call the roll. In this vote, the ayes are 55, the nays are 45. The motion to table is agreed to. The point of order is not sustained.
The Senate implications are extremely important. To remove Trump from office after impeachment, 2/3 of the Senate must vote to convict. That means 67 senators. According to the numbers in the script, the Senate currently has 52 Republicans and 48 Democrats. If all 48 Democrats vote to convict, 19 Republican senators would have to join them. That is a difficult number, but not an impossible one. 19 out of 52 Republicans would need to decide that staying tied to Trump is more dangerous than breaking from him. And according to the current discussion, there are already whispers in the Senate. Some Republicans are reportedly considering conviction if the evidence becomes strong enough. Some are worried about Trump's approval rating collapsing. Some are beginning to wonder whether defending Trump is now a political liability instead of a political advantage. Trump's approval rating is reportedly down to 38%, and that number matters. That is the kind of approval rating that tells lawmakers a president is losing the country. It is the kind of number that makes congressional Republicans nervous about being seen as loyal defenders. Senators care about their own elections. They care about polling in their states. They care about whether voting to protect Trump helps them or damages them. And when a president's approval falls that low, some senators begin to calculate that voting to convict may actually be better for their own political survival than voting to acquit. That means Trump being impeached, convicted, and removed from office is no longer just political fantasy. It is a real possibility in the scenario described by this script. There is a bipartisan group in the House demanding his resignation. There is alleged evidence of illegal FBI firings. There is alleged evidence of a fraudulent ad campaign. There are claims that Trump admitted to using certain policies as political smokescreens. There is a prosecutor accusing him of perjury. There is a federal judge calling him dishonest about his valuations. There are cabinet members and insiders breaking ranks. That is the kind of environment that can push a president toward removal. That is the kind of pressure that can make resignation look less damaging than impeachment and conviction. H. Res. 247 lays out several specific claims of abuse of power and obstruction. It references the FBI firings allegedly approved by Kash Patel. It references the $220 million no-bid advertising campaign that Trump allegedly approved and then denied approving. It references the Manhattan DA's perjury referral accusing Trump of lying under oath. It references alleged efforts by Trump to obstruct prosecutions by firing officials and retaliating against investigators. The resolution argues that this conduct endangers national security because it weakens public confidence in government institutions. It claims that Trump violated the Constitution and committed the kind of high crimes and misdemeanors that justify removal from office. The 8 Republican signers are especially important because they had to make a real political calculation. Signing onto a resignation ultimatum against a president from your own party is not a small step. It carries political risk. It could anger Trump's base. It could trigger primary challenges. It could isolate them inside the party. But they apparently decided that the scandals were too serious to ignore. They are specifically pointing to the ad campaign scandal and the FBI firings as reasons for their decision. Their message is that they can no longer defend this. They cannot remain part of a party that protects a president accused of this level of corruption. They are drawing a line. The timeline is also critical. If Trump does not resign within 72 hours, the House is reportedly prepared to hold an expedited impeachment vote by March 12th. House leadership has apparently already counted the votes. If all 195 Democrats support impeachment, they need only 23 more votes to reach 218. The script says at least 8 Republicans are already publicly on board, and more may be considering it. That means the final number could grow when the roll call begins. If impeachment passes with bipartisan support, it would be a devastating political signal. Trump would not simply be impeached by Democrats. He would be impeached with votes from his own party. Then the fight moves to the Senate. If the House impeaches Trump, the Senate holds a trial to determine whether to convict and remove him. This would become the 3rd impeachment trial connected to Trump's presidency. Both sides would present evidence. Both sides would make arguments. Senators would then vote. The threshold is 67 votes. Democrats alone cannot reach it. They would need 19 Republicans. That is the mountain Trump's opponents would have to climb. But the script argues that several categories of Republicans might be open to conviction: senators from blue or purple states, retiring senators who do not fear primary challenges, senators facing tough re-election campaigns, and institutional Republicans who care more about constitutional order than party loyalty. The scandals leading to this ultimatum are what make the situation so explosive. Marjorie Taylor Greene's break with Trump over alleged third-term plans, Kristi Noem's leak about the ad campaign after being fired, Kash Patel's FBI memo leaks showing alleged political retaliation through law enforcement, the Manhattan DA perjury referral, the federal judge calling Trump a liar. All of it adds up to a sense that the government is breaking under the pressure of Trump's conduct. Congress is now being forced to decide whether it will act or continue watching the crisis deepen. Trump's public posture remains defiant, but the script presents him as increasingly isolated. His party is splitting. His cabinet allies are breaking ranks. His approval rating is low. Congress is issuing ultimatums. Prosecutors are filing referrals. Judges are openly questioning his honesty. Federal agencies are leaking damaging information. That is the kind of political environment where a president becomes vulnerable. That is the kind of moment where resignation moves from unthinkable to possible, because the cost of fighting can become higher than the cost of stepping down. If Trump refuses to resign and the House votes, impeachment appears likely in the script's scenario. That would make him one of the only presidents in American history to be impeached, and the political stain would define his presidency. Once the case reaches the Senate, the trial could last weeks. The evidence would be presented publicly. Trump's defenders would try to frame it as partisan. His opponents would present it as corruption and abuse of power. If his approval continues to fall, if more scandals emerge, or if more Republicans break ranks, Senate Republicans may begin thinking differently. They may decide that protecting Trump could hurt them more than removing him. That is why resignation could become a serious option. If Republican senators begin publicly saying they are willing to convict, if the evidence becomes overwhelming, if Trump's approval crashes further, and if his legal exposure grows, Trump may decide that resigning is better than being impeached and removed. Resignation would allow him to claim he is stepping down for the good of the country. It would let him attempt to preserve some dignity, but impeachment and conviction would be permanent humiliation. It could potentially lead to him being barred from holding office again. That is a much bigger consequence, and it could make resignation the safer political move. Even if Trump resigns or is removed, the legal cases against him would not disappear. The Manhattan fraud case would continue. The classified documents case would continue. Any other investigations or prosecutions could continue. Once he is out of office, some presidential immunity arguments become weaker. That means Trump could face even more legal danger after leaving power. The end of the presidency would not end the legal pressure. It could intensify it. The international implications are also serious. America's allies and adversaries are watching closely. Allies may see the possibility of Trump's removal as a sign that American institutions still have the power to correct themselves. Adversaries may see chaos and look for ways to exploit it. The world is asking whether American democracy can still function under pressure. Can Congress hold a president accountable? Can prosecutors follow evidence? Can courts maintain authority? Can institutions check a corrupt executive? If impeachment moves forward and conviction becomes possible, it would send a powerful message that the system still has teeth. The media narrative is now damaging for Trump. Coverage is focused on scandal, corruption, abuse of power, and the demand that he resign or face impeachment. That kind of narrative shapes public opinion, and public opinion shapes congressional behavior. With Trump's approval already at 38%, continued impeachment coverage could drive it even lower. The more public opinion turns against him, the more Republicans may distance themselves. The more Republicans distance themselves, the more realistic conviction becomes. If Trump does not resign within the 72-hour window, the House is expected in this script to move toward a vote around March 12th. Impeachment would likely pass, then the Senate would hold a trial. The outcome would be uncertain. Acquittal may still be more likely than conviction because Senate removal is always difficult, but removal is not impossible. That is what makes this moment different. It is not a routine partisan impeachment. It is being presented as a response to bipartisan outrage and a pileup of alleged illegal conduct. If Trump is removed, it would show that American democracy still has working institutions. It would show that Congress can act, that the Constitution's checks and balances still matter, and that no president is above the law. That is why this moment is so important. If Congress fails to act in the face of clear abuse and corruption, the system weakens. But if Congress steps forward, it proves that accountability is still possible. Right now, according to this script, the institutions of American government are beginning to work the way they were designed to work. Congress is asserting its impeachment power, prosecutors are pursuing evidence, judges are calling out dishonesty, federal agents are exposing alleged misconduct, former allies are breaking ranks. All of those forces together are creating real pressure on Trump. Not symbolic pressure, real pressure, the kind that can threaten a presidency. This is what accountability looks like when the system finally begins to move. This is what the rule of law looks like when it is tested. This is what checks and balances are supposed to do. And according to this moment, it is actually happening.